Hey, welcome back to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. And joining us today is an expert who has seen the inner workings of power in Silicon Valley and on Wall Street. And she's here to talk about a phenomenon that's impacting workplaces everywhere. Our guest is Kate Lowry. She is a CEO coach, a venture capitalist, and the author of the new book, Unbreakable: How to Thrive Under Fear-Based Leaders. Based on her experience at companies like McKinsey, Meta, and Insight Partners, Kate argues that while society has moved towards more empathetic leadership, we're now seeing a re-emergence of domineering, fear-based leaders. Her work delves into the science behind this behavior, showing that this type of leadership is rooted in deep insecurity. She provides a roadmap for how to respond to it. Kate, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. Kate, your book is incredibly timely. Why do you believe coercive and manipulative leaders are not only making a comeback, but are being openly celebrated right now?
Yes, we are in a gloves off era where there's a new permission to be cruel, top down, and hierarchical. We've seen it in media and shows like Game of Thrones, House of Cards, and Billions. We're seeing it in the tech sector, in the business sector, and in social and public sectors. It's kind of a tidal wave. It's hitting across every part of society.
Wow. And you say that at the root of a fear-based leader's false supremacy is a deep insecurity. What are some common misconceptions that people have about these leaders that need to be debunked?
Absolutely. These leaders will tell you, I am all powerful. You're nothing without me. Resistance is futile. And I'm here to tell you that none of that is true. It's all just posturing. Because these leaders are motivated by fear themselves, they use fear to motivate others. But something that they don't normally tell you is that fear robs you of your creativity. And that means that they are very, very predictable.
And what are some of the most significant lessons that you learned about leadership from working in those high stakes environments?
Yes. So I have spent time advising everything from seed startups to the Fortune 500. What I can tell you is that executives are often very lonely. The executives that aren't lonely are the ones who are drawn to power for the wrong reasons. And wherever you have very distinct power dynamics, you're going to have people who abuse them.
Yeah, we've talked over the past few minutes about how fear-based leaders are predictable because their actions ultimately are stemming from insecurity. What are some of the common behaviors that people should look for? And how can they learn to anticipate a fear-based leader's actions?
Yes, the first thing that you need to understand is that to them, there's no such thing as equality. You're either stepping on someone else or being stepped on. So don't expect them to treat you like a peer. Secondly, they'll try to motivate you using shame. They'll tell you, you're a bad person, you get nothing right. If you start to see people being shamed in the office, you're probably around a fear-based leader. And third, I would say that there's a distinctive feeling that you get. If you feel like you're holding your breath because you're walking on eggshells around someone that you just can't please, you're probably around a fear-based leader.
Yeah, that's powerful advice over here and powerful observations. And again, I know your work is deeply personal, Kate. It's stemming from your experience growing up in a hierarchical family. How did your personal journey influence your decision to become a CEO coach and write this book?
Absolutely. So I grew up in a family that was led by two fear-based parents. And that meant that I had, 20 years before I entered the business world to run experiments on fear-based people and see what works on them. So I came into these elite business environments already kind of knowing how to deal with folks like this. And then later on in my work in kind of the upper echelons of the business world, out of the 30 different managers I've had in my career, about 8 were fear-based, and I needed these tactics.
Absolutely. And I guess speaking about your practice as a CEO coach, how do you coach a CEO, Kate, who might be acting from a place of fear and insecurity? And what's the first step in helping them transform their leadership style?
The first step is helping them anchor. People running on fear aren't very grounded. You have to help them believe that the ground under their feet is still and not moving. And then you have to work with them to build up their confidence, build up their self-trust, because it's when you trust and like yourself that you're able to lead from a place of strength.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm chatting with the author of just a truly fantastic book. It's called Unbreakable. Kate, what's that number one lesson that you want our listeners or readers of the book, because hopefully I know over the next few minutes we'll make sure we get people in touch with you so they can find the book. What's that most important message you want people to take away from Unbreakable?
I want people to know that you are not powerless and you're not alone. If you can wake up your agency and learn the skills that you need to thrive under very adverse circumstances, you can have a really great life.
One more time for our listeners just tuning in, what is that message that you're trying to convey, and what sort of research have you done in order to put Unbreakable together?
Definitely. I've done a lot of research. In fact, I've spent thousands of hours with top trauma psychologists. I have a degree in comparative politics and spent, many years now in the elite business world. And when you put it all together, you get a book like this. For readers who are just joining, I would say you're not alone in facing very difficult personalities right now. Top-down, fear-based leaders are having a moment, but they're very predictable. And if you know the strategies to take them on, you will not be powerless.
Okay, bottom line. So I know so many of our listeners are thinking of this question. I'm just going to ask it. For a leader who feels that they're working under a bully, what's the most important piece of advice that you want to give them, Kate? What can they do to protect their well-being?
First of all, information is power. Never tell them what you actually care about. Secondly, you need to understand their emotional maturity levels. If they're operating on the level of a 2-year-old having tantrums, you can't expect them to act like an adult.
For sure, absolutely. And I know in your book, you provide a lot of tactical guidance on how to respond to these leaders. But what's one simple yet powerful strategy that a person can use to preserve their autonomy and agency at work?
First of all, use your availability as leverage. Fear-based leaders spin out when they feel like they can't reach you. So silence and not being available is power. So is not reacting. Fear-based leaders like to get a rise out of you. They want to see that they're causing you pain. So pretend that you are like the most inert thing in a landscape, like a gray rock. And if they metaphorically kick you, don't show that it hurts.
What a fascinating bit of research on this. And I certainly hope all of our listeners will pick up a copy of the book. We'll remind them how to do that in just a moment. Kate, lastly, I know that you're also a venture capitalist. And I'm really curious, how does your ability to identify a fear-based leader actually influence your investment decisions?
Absolutely. One of the core pieces of an investment decision is being able to evaluate people and their ability to grow and manage teams. If I see strong traits of insecurity or domineering behavior, I'm not interested in funding those founders because insecurity and fear is often counter to innovation.
Yeah. Well, our guest, Kate Lowry, is a CEO coach, venture capitalist, and the author of the new book, Unbreakable, How to Thrive Under Fear-Based Leaders. And I appreciate how you've brought so much of your experience at companies like McKinsey and Meta and Insight Partners. And certainly you've been analyzing a lot of the change in all sorts of different sectors and industries. Kate, really appreciate all the insight that you brought into this conversation. One more time, how can folks find the book and I guess available for pre-order?
That's right. It's available for pre-order now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble.
Fantastic. Kate Lowry, again, the book is Unbreakable, How to Thrive Under Fear-Based Leaders. And that's how we're going to have to wrap up the show today. It's been a jam-packed episode of Get Down to Business, and you can always get it on your favorite podcast app. Just search for Get Down to Business. But friends, do me a favor, make sure you subscribe, rate, review, and share so you and your colleagues don't miss a single episode. We've been on the air for over 12 years, and we got a lot more in store for you. I can't wait to talk a lot more small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship when we're back next week right here on M560 The Answer, where the podcast can be found. Success. Let's get down to business.